Good afternoon. Nice to see you again for our current decompression session. And both you and I have had some challenges with COVID in the last three weeks. So I just want to let the viewers know that we're both doing well, but also to watch out. I just saw today there's an uptick in the spread, and especially here in the California, in the Bay Area, apparently it's starting to blossom again. So just be cautious out there.
I agree with you.
Yeah, definitely not a fun thing.
Well, it's not a fun thing, but definitely it's not nearly as bad as I know I didn't feel like I was going to die.
Yeah, I hear you. No, I agree with you on that. Well, Joe, let's get into our conversation today, because there's a couple things you and I have talked about. That there was some information in one of the more recent editions of the Silicon Valley Business Times that talked about the way small and medium-sized business owners here in California are perceiving the economic situation compared to the national average, and also some other very interesting information about the unemployment scenario here in our part of the country. So it's a very interesting thing, because we seem to be having a different perspective on that here in California, and particularly the Bay Area, than other parts of the country. Why do you think that is?
Well, we've got a different economy here, Dave, especially in the Bay Area. We've got a lot of focus on the high-tech space. So it's different than Arnold, Missouri, where it's more focused on small businesses. That's the driving economy. We've got a lot of high-tech, big businesses here, and that skews what's happening here, or the feeling of things here in California, or in the Bay Area specifically. So I mean, you look around, I believe a lot more employees work for big companies than the smaller ones.
Yeah,
relatively speaking.
Relatively speaking, yeah, that's probably true. That's probably true. Well, let's get in. We got a couple of slides here. Let me share my screen and let's get into the conversation on this, because it is a real interesting thing. The economic scenario does continue to evolve. We've seen things like the Fed saying we're going to keep the interest. We're trying to do whatever they can do to push the inflation rate down to 2%. So they're continuing to keep interest rates up and stuff like that. And all of this has an impact. So where's what I'm looking for here? Yeah, here we go. So the thing that I wanted to call out was this information that was in Silicon Valley Business Journal, which was JP Morgan survey of mid-sized companies looking at the mid-year business leaders outlook. And it is really interesting how we have a positive perspective on the economy compared to other parts of the country, that we're not anticipating. A lot more business owners are not anticipating a recession, and you're expecting fewer are expecting a problem in the second half of the year than compared to the national average. So that's really an interesting thing to me.
So if we look at the positive outlook for the rest of the country, they've got a much more positive outlook, because here we've had so many layoffs in that high-tech space.
Oh, that's true.
And that rolls down to the mid-sized companies and even some of the smaller companies. Actually, it rolls down to everything, because that the higher tech companies, the Googles, the Facebooks, those big guys had very the pay scales were very high, so there's a lot of discretionary spending, and now that's shrinking down, the discretionary spending shrinking around, and this is going to be even a more interesting impact over the next 12 to 18 months as those people roll off of unemployment.
Yeah, right.
Which we're going to talk about here in a little bit. So do we think we're going to have a recession? In California, I think we've seen this before. It's a correction, not a recession.
Yeah.
Because the big companies were overinflated. What they're doing is they're right sizing. The mid-sized businesses, well, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Another thing that I think impacts this question here of positive outlook on the economy, California has a very large uh, industry activity tied to entertainment. And you've got the screenwriters and you've got this strike that's been going on from people that are writing scripts and doing all sorts of other things for TV and the movies right now. And that has a huge impact on Southern California, especially because that's where a tremendous percentage of the industry is housed. So,
and let's roll into that the fires and floods.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because that's affected our agriculture industry.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that all makes sense. So when we look at that, you and I are saying here is that you need to put this information into perspective, right? And you can't just have a knee-jerk reaction to something based on a piece of data that might be coming from a talking head somewhere, right?
One piece of data is not enough to make a decision on.
Exactly.
So you've got to look at everything. You've got to look at the hey, here in the Bay Area, we're expecting what San Francisco's got a 30% occupancy or 70% occupancy rate, so a 30% non-occupancy rate in the office buildings.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah.
There's some huge other data points out there. Interest rates have gone up, so there's going to be a bunch of commercial buildings that are going to come up, and they're not going to be able to pay their mortgages.
Yeah,
that's going to change things.
Yeah.
So you got to look at all the data points and take that into consideration as you're putting together your planning.
And we're going to talk about the things that you need to take a look at in just a moment. But I wanted to touch on one other subject, if I may, and that is this information about unemployment rate, especially here in Santa Clara County, where we're headquartered. San Jose is the largest city in Northern California in terms of population, and it is the central hub for Silicon Valley. And what they're saying out of the article that was in the Silicon Valley Business Journal is that we are at a 3.6% unemployment rate, which is the highest rate since October of 2021. And a whole bunch of that has to do with the fact that the high-tech companies have been laying off. We just saw something on Monday. There was an announcement that LinkedIn is laying off another 181 people here in the Bay Area or something like that. So this has an impact, but what impact does it have when we talk about the small and medium-sized business and what the opportunity is for them?
I think it's fantastic because we've been talking about labor shortages for how long now?
Yeah.
What, 2 years labor shortages. Well, wait a minute. How can you have a labor shortage if you got the highest unemployment rate? Well, so I think what's going to happen is we're going to get a right sizing. It's going to be painful because a lot of the unemployment numbers are coming from that high tech, high paid space that's on unemployment, and when that unemployment comes out, it's going to open up the job market, so the labor pool is going to get much bigger. Okay, now are the employees going to be happy? Probably not, because when you're at Google making 100K and then you go to McDonald's making 40K, it's not going to feel too good.
Yeah,
and
right.
I'm just making up numbers, but there's going to be a discrepancy there. So for small business, though, I think it's great because it's going to open up that labor pool substantially.
Yeah. And I think when you talk about that, when we think about what the small and medium-sized business owner is looking at right now in terms of adoption of new technologies, implementation of ways to reach your market, etc. A lot of these people that are coming out of the high-tech companies have experience in some of these technologies that are beginning to
not
be
experienced.
They're
experts. They're experts. Most small businesses are technologically challenged, there's going to become a whole lot of knowledge coming into the small business pool that
Yeah.
is going to change a lot of the dynamics as we move forward. And what this means to me is make sure you got some technology savvy people on your team,
Yeah.
because the world is changing. AI has already changed the world.
That's true.
I mean, Chat GPT and these other things have substantially changed things.
That's true.
The whole workforce labor pool is going to evolve.
It,
It's going to be
that's a good point, because yeah.
it's going to be very interesting.
We both, you and I have both read a lot of stuff about what kinds of jobs might be impacted by, AI technology. But the reality is, it opens up other necessary opportunities, because the kinds of decision-making processes and interpersonal communication and relationship things that are part of doing business are not things that AI is going to be able to accomplish. So it really has, it can be an adjunct and a positive to the business if you figure out the best way to utilize it for your company.
I know they've started to try to incorporate emotional intelligence into AI.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a long time.
It's going to be a long time if that ever gets there. Yeah. Well, let's take a look at what this means for us, for our clients. What can you do in order to position yourself relative to these things that are going on in the economy and the unemployment situation? And a couple of things that I had thought of were that you really need to study your financial statements. Is that like a fair statement there?
And not only study it, but review your budgets for the next year. What are the budgets? What are your current P&Ls? What's your cash flow statements and your budgets for the next 12 months? And what adjustments need to be happening there? So it's not just study them, but adjust your budgets moving forward.
Yeah, that's interesting about it, adjusting the budgets, because if you're looking at your financial planning, you will have said, well, we're going to allocate X amount of dollars. We intend to allocate X amount of dollars to this project or this activity or whatever, this market segment. And that may or may not be the best avenue of approach at the moment, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, and always be frugal. I mean, a lot of we're in Silicon Valley, the startup capital of the world, and everything else, and people have a tendency to just go, oh, throw money away. You got to be frugal, put your plans in place, work your plans, and adjust as you move forward.
Right. Now that ties back into reviewing your tactical marketing strategies, I would think too. Yeah.
Absolutely. It is, and when we say tactical marketing, what's making money, what's getting your ROI, and what's not.
Right.
Okay. So if your tactical plans aren't working, update them. Not only review them, but what's working, what's not. AI is going to change a lot of them. How much are you spending on things, and how can you reduce it? Because I mean, I've got content writers are already in trouble.
Yeah. Right. Right. One of the things that's interesting to me about this idea of reviewing your tactical marketing plans, I've known people, and this has happened to me individually too, where you get, oh, I really like this angle. This is going to work. I'm just going to keep trying this because ultimately it's going to work. And it's become a time and a money sinkhole. But you still want to, so if you actually evaluate the ROI against the strategy or the tactical plan that you have, you may find that your favorite hobby horse is not the one you should be riding.
Yeah, and if it's a hobby, make it a hobby.
Yeah, but
allocate them for, it's okay, but don't treat it as a marketing plan. Treat it as a hobby. It's a cost I'm going to do because I like to podcast, and I know a lot of people. Man, I'm spending time, man. If you're not getting your ROI, why are you doing it? Oh, I love to do it. Oh, then keep doing it and treat it as a hobby. It's okay.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing you had talked about earlier today when you and I were talking is the need to review your contingency plans. So when you say that relative to this overall concept we're chatting about, what do you mean there?
Well, so there's multiple contingency plans. If this happens, when it happens, if the so you know when I like looking at it, hey, do I have the right people in my organization still?
Mm,
Because the world has changed. You got to do an organization review and what's your contingency plan as things change. What's your contingency plan if interest rates change? If you got any type of loans, we talked about this before.
mhm,
What's happening with the interest rates? Continuing to stay high, that's going to affect a lot of businesses right now. So
mhm,
look at all of your contingency plans and then review your annual plan and update it. Don't just review it, but update your annual plan. It says, okay, hey, I need to adjust here. I need to spend less, get more for my ROI, my marketing plans. I need to
mhm,
allocate more for labor because the labor pool that's going to be coming out is going to expect more dollars.
mhm,
So how do I attract that top talent? You're gonna have to allocate more money to your payroll.
mhm.
What are the other aspect of things? So
Yeah,
update your annual plan with these as data points and all the other data points, and you can't, you know, if either one of us had a crystal ball, we wouldn't be sitting here, right?
yeah,
But
right, right.
but
You,
you can make your contingency plans.
I think that one of the things that sort of I think happens a lot. I could be wrong about this, but if I own a business that I'm running, and I've done this sort of thing, you're running a business and you're operating in a particular area, the thought of having to go through all of this kind of thing again, reviewing the financials, looking at the plans and all that, because I've done this stuff, I did this or got a plan together, and I'm just going down this path. It's like a daunting concept to have to go back and dig into that again. But it's so important that you do that, right? So how do you help somebody? What can you say to our viewers to help them be less frustrated or challenged with going and taking another look at all these
BlackBerry. Right? Hey, if you don't review where you're going, you might be going off the end of a cliff, or a cliff came up on you and you're going to be heading over it. So you need to pivot. You need to turn. How many businesses that were just phenomenal have just gone off a cliff because they didn't review that? Now, if that can happen to the big boys, it can happen to anybody. So
things?
now, does it have to be a week-long full analysis and review of everything? No, it's review. Hey, here's some additional data. Do we need to make adjustments anywhere?
Yeah. Hmm.
It's not a full-blown thing. It's the time allocation versus the risk, no brainer.
Got it. Got it. And you know, uh, reaching out to Joe, to you really would be a reasonable thing for somebody to do to kind of help them go through the process. Sometimes I go to the gym 3 days a week, right? I've got a fitness coach there. If the coach wasn't there, the things that I would do and the number of reps or the whatever would not be anywhere near the same. I wouldn't get the same impact out of the experience as I do when I've got a coach there. So if you're going to go and you're going to do this review, which you should, it'll be faster and more impactful, and you'll get better results if you reach out and to Joe or us here at brainSHARE to help you through the process.
Of course, I want you to bring us in, but if it's not us, bring in a professional, a facilitator, somebody that understands it, somebody that can give you that outsider's perspective of where you're going, and ask those stupid questions. Why are you? I was going through some financial. I said, why are you spending this much money? What's that on? Do you need that? Well, no, we've just always done it.
Right.
That answer just makes me laugh. I'm like, hey, that's why you've got to go through those detailed analysis and say, hey, why are we doing? And ask yourself, why are we doing this? Do we need to keep doing it?
Absolutely.
Where should we be spending the money someplace else?
2 weeks spending myself with else. Well, Joe, I think we need to wrap up here. Is there any final words you have for our clients?
Hey, if you get stuck, go to brainSHARE.online, sign up for a free call. We'll talk about where you're at, where you want to go, and put the plan in place to get you there as expediently as possible.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, Joe. Good to see you again. I'm glad you're feeling better.
And I'm glad you're feeling better.
All right. Thanks a lot.